I'll just take a few minutes in the beginning for two things. One, give the context of this program. Overall, we will be meeting next 4 months, once a month. And the second, I will also introduce the speaker for today. That's what I will do in my initial words. You know, all of us have been parents. We have seen parents. We have seen, you know, how it is for a parent to have a baby and see the baby grow. Now, when we look at business leaders and entrepreneurs, for them, the business that they found, they start, manage, is like a baby. It's really exciting seeing the baby grow not just, you know, physically, but also psychologically, in terms of skills, in terms of capabilities, and so on. It's a great experience. Same thing for entrepreneurs, starting a business, growing it. Now, as we all know, there are two things that we know when we have seen babies grow. While the growth comes with all the excitement and the joy, it also has a lot of hard work and pains. First is, you know, anybody with a small baby will know the number of sleepless nights we spend taking care of the babies, because babies don't necessarily sleep at the same time we sleep. And then as they grow to toddlers, we have to make sure they are safe as they grow. You know, the challenges in every stage as parents, even when we have teenagers, continues to grow. So there are a lot of pains. But at the same time, we see that as babies grow, even for parents, many times it's surprising the kind of things that they can do, how fast they can learn, how many things that they can do. They invariably surprise us. The second thing about this analogy is that when we have children growing, we need to adapt and change our style as children grow. We all know that. What works when a baby is there, you know, we have to take care of everything for its diet, its health, and so on. But as babies grow to toddlers, to teenagers, the way we approach the problem varies. And as businessmen, we know it is the same thing with business. As they grow through different stages, how much we adapt and use the right kind of, you know, approach to the business. And that is going to be the topic for this next 4 parts. We are going to discuss in detail. For today, we are taking up the most important area, which is the strategic issues facing the business. Overall business issues, strategic issues. That's what we are going to talk about. Okay. Just before I introduce Nandu, one more thing. Both the speakers today, whether it's Nandu or me, we are familiar with English and we are very comfortable in Tamil. Tamil theriyum, English theriyum. We speak Hindi as well. And my friend Nanda Kumar speaks many more languages: Malayalam, Bengali, Telugu, and I don't know what else. So my request is, let's make sure language is not a constraint for us. We, while most of us we may speak in English, it's perfectly all right to use any language that we are comfortable in asking questions, raising questions, or giving comments or ideas. Okay. That's one. And the second, I have a request to the participants. If you are comfortable, if it is possible, you can keep the audio muted, but you can switch the video on, because it might help the speaker to, you know, see the people, see the reaction. It helps the audience. So if you are comfortable, I'm totally leaving it to you. It is your choice. Maybe, you know, it's not possible for everyone, but anybody who can open the video, please free to do so. With that, we come to Nanda Kumar. Nanda Kumar, just like me, has almost close to, you know, he is senior to me also, almost 4 decades of experience working across industry. By early training, he was in marketing and sales. Subsequently, of course, he has grown through the ranks and he has, you know, handled businesses as president, CEO, and so on. So business development, marketing, sales, these are his special areas. And he has a good understanding of other functional areas as well. Managing, you know, because if you become a business leader, you manage HR, you manage finance, you manage compliance, and so on. So he has an all-round exposure to business. He has worked in small companies as well as big companies. Big companies like VST or ITC, where he has handled, new business development for ITC. And he has also worked with a lot of small companies or small companies which have grown big, like something like Kavin Care. But more than all this, what I find about Nanda Kumar is he's a good friend of mine. I had the good fortune of knowing him for more than 20 years. A lot of things that I have seen him actually practice in terms of what this thing says. When we, whether it is networking, whether it is, striking a rapport, whether it's a shopkeeper, you want to ask him about the customers, you want to find out what the people are saying. He has a very nice way of doing it. If he goes to even a pawn shop or a coffee shop, he will not talk to them first. He will first buy something from there, buy a cup of tea or buy some chocolate, something. Then he will initiate into conversation. From the small things to many big things, he has a wide network of people. He is one person I know, he creates a network, not because he will get something out of it. It's in his nature. He helps people. So if any of you happen to see his LinkedIn profile and others, you will see a legion of followers, people whom he has trained, who joined as trainees and who are right now, general managers, VPs, and so on. So he is a person who practices what he teaches, whether it is a concept of marketing, concept of selling, concept of relationships. So I'm glad it's going to be Nanda Kumar. The way we will do it, initially, Nandu might, he likes to be called Nandu. In fact, feel free to call him Nandu. You're welcome to get in touch with any of us on social media. He would speak to us for about maybe 25-30 minutes or so. At the time, if you have questions, you're welcome to give it in the chat or note down. At the end, we will open out the session. We can have a dialogue. With that, I'll now hand over to Nandu.
Hey, thank you, Pandiyan. You've been very kind as usual. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Okay, I'm extremely happy to be with this august company of people. People who have the courage to take risk, people who have the courage to venture out and follow their dreams. Okay, entrepreneurs are one group who have always who I've always held in awe. Okay. Now, what I have tried to do, I've tried to keep the whole thing as simple as I can, and it is through discussion. Okay, கேள்வி இருக்கு இல்ல உங்களுக்கு டவுட் இருக்கு இல்ல உங்களுக்கு இதே கருத்துல you want to develop more, okay, that will enrich this evening. That will also help me learn. நானும் அதுல இருந்து கத்துப்பேன். Okay, so நான் அப்படிதான் பிளான் பண்ணியிருக்கேன், because what I'm saying are a very few simple things. Maybe there are some illustrations with it. Okay, but together I think we can build and learn. Okay, that's the model I'm going to follow today. First question. Okay, when I spoke about, hey, there's this thing of growth, the need for growth, pains of growth. Hey, someone asked me, hey, is growth really necessary? Okay, why do you have to grow? Why do you have to go through the pains of this growth? Okay, is growth really necessary? Now that set me thinking, and I think growth is a very natural thing. We are born as children, we grow. Plants grow, become trees. Okay, naturally and by nature, that is growth. Okay. For an organization, if you do not grow, I think it is a sure way to doom and destruction. Okay, you will not exist. If you don't grow over a period in time, you will not exist. Okay. With growth, you can support the investments that are required. Okay, you can support, you can fund further growth, and in growing is where an organization keeps its vigor. So I think this debate of should you grow or should you not grow, at the end of the day, we are in a business. We are not in, even altruism should grow. Okay, so growth is a necessary part of nature, is a necessary part of organization, is a necessary part of our living. Now, from there, I'd like to move to, hey, careful how you grow. Many years ago, I think Peter Drucker described growth. Okay, he said, be careful how you grow. Are you growing muscle? Are you growing fat? Or are you growing cancer within? Okay, so how do you know this? When you're growing fat, your volume and value are growing, but you're doing it with improved productivity. Now, what is productivity? Productivity is output per man hour, output per hour, output per machine. Okay, you measure it, but as long as you're growing with improved productivity, you're building muscle. And if you're building muscle, you will remain agile. Okay, you will remain responsive. You'll be able to manage your environment better. You'll be able to manage your competition better. You'll be able to manage yourself better. Okay, you're not dependent with good muscle. If you're growing without increases in productivity, okay, at the same productivity, then you're growing fat, which means you're adding people and you're getting growth. Okay, that's really growing fat, and that is not a healthy way to grow. And if you're growing, okay, but reducing productivity, which means adding more manpower, adding more machines than required, that is cancerous growth. Okay, and that is a sure way to do. I think we can look at the airlines industry. Okay, even a brand called Kingfisher. I think it grew too fat. Okay, though the airline industry itself is susceptible to ups and downs internationally, but this is a clear case of where it grew fat. It could not manage itself, and it went down the drain. It also did not get attention. Last year, I understand a very famous company in India shut down. Atlas Cycles. Okay, they had a capacity of 31 million cycles, production capacity. And in 2020, I think November, October, they had to shut down. Apparently, there were signs of it earlier. Okay, people were able to import cheap parts, cycle parts from Sri Lanka, from Bangladesh, and they were able to assemble cycles at small scale level and sell it. And that was cutting into these people. Okay, finally, duty was lifted on imports from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, and this was freely available, and it ended closing a very well-known brand and August business. Okay, had to close. So they did not keep track of their growth. They were not concentrating on their costs. They were not looking at their productivity. Okay, and this led to a big problem. Some time back, I was invited to a board meeting as an invitee, okay, because they were looking at expanding a certain business. And I was quite impressed. Okay, they were going into a new geography. There was a brand, and they were going into a new geography. The forecast after the first year did not show any significant reduction in the cost of sales, which means the infrastructure was not bringing in more revenue or more volume. There was one board member who picked it up and he said, hey, listen, this model doesn't seem to be right. Okay, and this is someone who was sitting and watching whether the growth was of muscle or of fat or of cancer. I found this interesting, and it was very nice that someone picked it up, and I was happy to be a witness to that. The next part I would like to go to is that big does not mean magnifying the small. Okay, you can't take a small and magnify it and say, hey, grow bigger, grow bigger. It is not that. Because for each stage, you'll have to use a different strategy. Okay. I'd like to take retail business as an example. Retailing. For a limited number of retail outlets, for some limited may mean 10, for some it may mean 20, for some it may mean 40, for some it may mean 50. But ultimately, every retail business has its limit of how it can be managed by the owners themselves. By owner, it could be a sole proprietor, it could be a firm, it could be a company, whatever. But there is a limit to how many such, even with technology, how many such outlets can be managed, okay, directly by the owner, employing their own staff in each of the outlets. And that is why franchising is such a thriving business. Okay, franchising takes away the need for a company to employ its own people in different locations to run retail outlets. In many cases, what is required in running retail is an entrepreneurial outlook rather than a managerial outlook. Okay, managerial outlook can be brought in by systems of the company, okay, by a method. Okay, that is the learning, that is the guardbook. Okay, but to run it every day, you need an entrepreneurial mindset. Okay, the employees in the retail outlet may be very important in retaining customers, bringing in new customers and retaining customers. If an employee leaves, many customers may leave along with them. An entrepreneur can ensure that this employee is motivated, well kept, needs looked after, and kept within the company. And the employee does not leave in a hurry. Okay. There may be also smaller issues to ensure that there is no leakage. Okay, maintenance is well done. Okay, there are no such issues. And if there are any customer-related issues, the manager will look at the book, whereas the entrepreneur will solve it in a quick manner. So there are many companies whose growth may be limited because of their desire to control everything. But it is actually a process of letting go which will actually facilitate growth. So you let go the desire for control and you manage delivery and quality through systems. Okay. So that was one thing. So it is not that, hey, I ran these outlets, this is how you run it, and I'm going to magnify it. That's not going to get you growth. Similarly, an FMCG company moving into another country. Okay, the same strategies which worked in the base country or the home country is not going to work in other countries. Okay, some countries, for example, if you go to a country like Australia, there may be five, for a FMCG company, there may be 5 or 6 or 7 customers or 10 customers at the most who will buy 60-70% of your produce. You're not going to distribute it mass. It's only 30%, 25% of your produce which you will be distributing mass. 60-70%, okay, will be what you call key account management, or what in India they call modern trade today. That's the structure. Okay, maybe e-commerce too in today's world. So big doesn't mean replicating small. If you go to the Middle East, for example, you go to a distributor, you go to appoint a distributor, it's not like India. There the distributor will ask you, hey, okay, these are your products, very good. Tell me, what is your budget? This is something, when you go from here, you may not even be used to hearing. Okay, what is your budget? Because they want to know, hey, this is the product, this is what we want to achieve, and this is our budget for it. Okay, the budget is with you. Okay, you want to share it with trade partners, please do it. So there are different approaches to different countries. There are different approaches to different businesses. So big is not magnifying small. Let me tell you, if you have any doubts at this stage, you can raise hands, you can ask questions. Pandiyan is keeping track of it. Okay. So and if it's very urgent, I will address it before I move forward. I'll be very happy to do that. Third. Now, one of the key issues in moving from small to big is people. Now, I think the third session will go in detail, okay, as far as the people area are concerned. But I thought it's important to touch on some small managerial aspects of people. Okay, when something starts up, it's a group of people, promoters or friends or whatever who started. They work without silos. They are all committed. They have a certain passion for winning. Okay, and they work without boundaries and they work without complaint. Mostly they succeed. Then they have to start recruiting people. They recruit people. Okay, there are a whole host of people, and there are many people who enjoy starting companies. Okay, all of them are committed, but they may not share the same passion as the people who originally started. Okay, and the next lot may have even less passion. Now, as the company grows, you're hiring more managers than entrepreneurs. Okay, the company may feel, hey, listen, when we started, we had so many new ideas, we had so many new products, we address problems so differently, but these are all people who come, okay, do their work in a committed manner and go away. Really, the difference is, as you grow, there is one side of the business which needs to be maintained, managed and maintained. And there is another side of the business which needs to bring in new ideas, new products, which needs to spur growth. Okay, and I think you must keep both separate. That part of the business, which is to spur growth, is really, you're going to develop infants. And infants must be kept in the nursery, and they must be managed by a different set of people. And the other group are adults, and adults are definitely managed by another set of people. So this becomes very important, and there are many large companies which manage this very well. Okay, P&G is one company which comes to my mind, which has a separate group itself for innovation. Johnson & Johnson and 3M. 3M is a company that thrives on innovation, and all new products are completely differently handled. If you're interested in reading more on this, there's a Professor Ranjay Gulati who has written an article called Soul of a Startup in the HBR of the July-August issue of 2019. Okay, he talks about the soul of the startup, and many companies which start and grow, they feel that the soul has been lost. And it's a very interesting article, and he talks about how you can still retain the soul of a startup. Now, one of the keys in managing this transition successfully is communication. You must be communicative with all your people. Maybe it is time to set a structure, to set a hierarchy, but it is not enough just to set it. It's enough to communicate. It is very important to communicate what this hierarchy is, what each role will do. And I think details of this, Pandiyan, I'm sure you will cover in the third session. Another example I want to talk about is, as a company grows, now this is an FMCG example. Okay, when a company starts, especially in the FMCG area, and you go and look for distributors, you're not going to get actual selling effort from the distributor. What distributors normally do for smaller companies, new companies, is they will cater, they will supply to the retailer. The company gets an order for them. So the company person has to go and get orders from retailers. Okay. This person will supply the goods, offer credit, do the collection. Okay. So he manages inventory, he breaks bulk, he goes delivers, so he manages freight, last mile delivery, okay, and he collects. That's normally the role. He's not going to put in that selling effort. Selling effort is largely for brands that are already established and large companies where his costs are well defrayed. If he puts in a salesman, the cost is defrayed. But when you're starting, you can't defray such costs. Now, here's a company that started that way. And it had a reasonably large sales force, over 300, almost 400 people across the country. But the company had to move to the next level. Therefore, the nature of the front line had to change from order taking, collecting orders from retailers, to playing more of a consultative role for the distributor on how to grow his sales, how to actually do distribution, how to do route planning, training the distributor salesmen to sell, talk about the monthly programs that the company is implementing, training the distributor staff, auditing the work, and suggesting how you improve, things like that. That is the sort of role where, from actually doing, the frontline people come back and actually support and train the distributor and his staff in growing sales. Now, there's a very different sort of skill from the resident skill in the company of 300, 400 people. Now, this transition had to be managed. Now, it's always a very tough decision when you have to say that, hey, these people are not good, or these people are not tuned to work like this. But no, this company sat, thought about it, and then said, hey, listen, let us not create fear. Let us be open. Let's be transparent. Let's talk to the people. So region by region, a team went, told, communicated to the people, hey, listen, company needs to grow, times are changing, needs are changing. Okay, so from this skill set, we need a different set of skill sets. Some of you may have it, some of you may not have it. Okay, those who have it, no problem. Those who don't have it, we'll have to see if you're trainable. If you're trainable, we are happy to train you. Okay, and if you're not trainable, we'll give you one more chance. Okay, ASMs will work with you, teach you, and over the next 3 months, okay, train you and see if you become capable. So there would be a first assessment. After the first assessment, there would be people who were seen good enough, people who are trainable. So they would make the grade. The others would be trained and given another chance. Okay, and if they made it, they made it. Otherwise, the company said, we will have to resettle you because we don't have any other rules. So this whole process would take about 6 months. I think that was one of the smoothest transitions of a very large number of people that ever happened, with no disruption, okay, no sabotage, and no heartache. Okay, I thought that is a worthy example, and I thought, that being transparent in managing the change always helps. and helps the company move and transition smoothly to the next level. The next point I want to bring about is when you grow in size, okay, when you're small, initially the owner, the entrepreneur, the founder group can have ideas from the gut through observation, okay, through feeling. Okay, you can operate a lot on that. But as you grow, this possibility decreases. Okay, and you have to become more dependent on data. Today, the world is also moving is moving towards being data driven. Okay. Digitizing is the order of the day. Companies are using enterprise resource planning softwares. Companies are using customer relationship management softwares. Companies are using Salesforce automation softwares. Okay, and they're using various research to understand what is happening to at the customer level, at the front end level, either in the form of retail audits or in the form of brand tracking and a whole host of other things. So data, managing data is growing. Okay. So what was initially observation, gut and feeling and discussion, I'd broadly call it a Delphi technique. Okay, a group of experts will sit and discuss and say, okay, this is what is happening. Is moving to more data and conversion of the data to information and using people's experience and judgment to convert that information into insights is going to be a very important part of driving growth in the business. The next thing I want to talk about really is investments into the future. When you're small, okay, you will be growing, but it is more about scaling, okay, producing more output and things like that. But as you gain size, I think you have to look at investments into the future. I've always been astounded at telecom. You had brands like Micromax, Carbon, okay, ruling the roost as India's mobile brands. Now, what were they doing? They were importing from China and selling in India. And as their market grew, and as the market at that level grew, they never foresaw the Chinese would come in with better quality brands than theirs at their prices, if not cheap, which is exactly what happened. Now, had these companies invested in manufacturing here, in some R&D here, maybe they could have staved off this competition, because India is also a good manufacturing hub for mobile phones. I mean, we make Apple phones, we have Nokia had a big plant here, Samsung still has a big plant here. Okay, so it's not that it is not possible, but I don't think these companies paid attention to that and invested into the future. The same thing can be said about Nokia. Everyone said that Nokia missed the bus because they didn't move to Android, though Android went to Nokia first and Nokia rejected it. And they said that is one of the reasons for Nokia's failure. Yes, that is one of the reasons. But there's another reason why Nokia failed, and especially in a country like India. Okay, India is largely a prepaid market. It is not a postpaid telephone market. Prepaid means you charge your SIM card with a certain balance and you use it. Postpaid is you pay a monthly or whatever usage you pay every month, after using. India used to be at that time a 95% plus prepaid market. And therefore, people were very comfortable using dual SIM. Okay, so that if they ran out of charge on one SIM, it is not so easy those days, even on a feature phone, to recharge so quickly. You had to go somewhere and get a recharge done. It's not like today where you can do it sitting where you are. Because of that, they always had a second SIM, which was charged again. Nokia phones did not facilitate second SIM, despite being in the Indian market for so many years, despite being leading in the Indian market. They thought that their phone build would carry them through. These are two failures on investing in the future. I think I'd like to talk about one case of a successful investment into the future. The success of brands like Ola and internationally Uber, set a lot of logistics, set a lot of people thinking that, hey, can we not become a logistics aggregator? Can't we not do to trucks and commercial vehicles what Ola and Uber did to cars? And there were many attempts. There were many guys who came, and many of them have left. But one of the successful, and all of them tried the asset-light model of Ola and Uber. But one of the successful guys is a company called Delivery, a Delhi-based company. And they went the opposite way. They made investments. They actually invested in trucks. They tied up with telco and they invested in a humongous amount of trucks. The entire community thought that they were going mad. But they knew exactly what they were doing. They were not competing against road transportation or rail transportation, which is what the other aggregators were trying to do. They were trying to aggregate lower price and offer it. But there were other complications in that. These people were fighting air freight. So they changed the rule. They were fighting air freight. A truck would be driven by a driver 300 kilometers. From there, it was a relay. The next 300 kilometers, another driver would take over and drive it to the next point. Whereas the guy who drove it forward for 300 kilometers would get into another truck and go back to his hometown 300 kilometers. So they ran a relay and cut down transit time. And since they were competing with air freight, their prices were very attractive. I recently saw that even Amazon uses delivery for intercity transportation. This is a very successful thing of thinking through and investing into the future, waiting for it and then developing the assets. Delivery appears to be a very successful. Some signs of growth lagging, can come early on. Even before the growth starts lagging, some signs can happen. And one of the early things are frontline employees leaving or employee attrition by itself. That's an early sign that maybe there's trouble. Maybe you have problems with your growth. Personality clashes. It's occasionally it can happen, but if it's rampant and it's very consistent, then there's a problem. Departments operating in silos, sure way to do. A flagging brand. These are all some of the things you can watch out for. Another enemy of growth is product obsolescence. Your product becoming irrelevant. I don't have to talk to you about the photograph industry, the photographic films. And here again, surprisingly, Kodak had the first digital technology for cameras, but they didn't pursue it. But product obsolescence can lead to, a dead end. And some of the industries that should watch out for product obsolescence today, I would say, carbonated soft drinks. They are under some threat. There seems to be some lagging over there. I don't have to mention tobacco. Snacks. Many of you all may be in food. While it is very difficult to be successful in snacks without providing indulgence, therefore taste, of which sweet and salt are an important component. But there is going to be regulation on fat, sweet, and salt. So there is a lot of investment into the future. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Internationally, if you look at it, there's a whole host of things happening in this area of sugar substitute, sweetness, fat management. A whole host of work is going on. But if things don't move in the right direction, you could have problems. Dry cell batteries may be another area. So early signs of problems with an industry, if you smell either innovation, or gradual movement, moving the trademarks, the brands which you have, the other intellectual assets which you have into a new area of business would be a good thing. And one important role in growth is statutory compliance. Rules, statutes change from a sole proprietor to a firm to a joint stock company. There are different rules, and it's important to stay in touch with them. Factory rules have to be followed. Otherwise, all these will hit you like a bad dream. If you're an international supplier, it becomes very important to ensure that you follow rules and regulations which are specified in that country, the country of export. So a thorough due diligence on statutory compliance regularly becomes a very important thing. And the final thing I want to talk about is succession. Any business, whether, professional businesses have their own way of planning succession. Family businesses have different ways of handling it. I read a statistic that only about 10% of family businesses succeed beyond the third generation. Only about 10% of family businesses succeed beyond the third generation. So I think having a good succession plan in place, having a good governance system in place is an important part of facilitating growth. I think GMR Group has done it. They hired Peter Leach, who's a UK-based consultant, to write out a complete governance and succession charter for them. And they've been following it, and their growth has largely been supported on this basis. I'm sure the Murugappa Group is used as an example in many cases from Chennai. Because if you don't have it, and if succession is based on non-merit, it can lead to problems, and that could be the reason for family businesses to have this problem. I think Infosys did something very good, where they said that the next generation would have ownership, but no management. I don't think any of the children of the founders work in the company. I have pretty much come to the end of what I wanted to say. There I end, and I look forward to your interaction. I look forward to your comments. I look forward to your doubts. I look forward to your disagreements.
Thanks, Nandu. As we wait for people to, either through chat or raising hand, raise questions, one this thing came to my mind listening to you. You talked about many aspects of growth and what it means and so on. What I find is we have a mix of audience. Now, how much of these challenges that we are looking at change because of the sector or the industry I work with? I may be a software developer. I may be a food service specialist. I may be having an electrical component business. So people could be from different this thing. Is there something common, but is there something which need to be different also in terms of growth challenges?
Hey, this is interesting. I found. Pandiyan, some of the principles I spoke about are valid across whatever
Right.
you said. I mean, be it FMCG, be it engineering, be it manufacturing, be it software. Generally, I've tried, that's why I said I tried to keep it general. Okay.
Yeah.
However, I'm sure different businesses have different drivers.
Yeah.
For example, FMCG, a lot will depend on growth of income. Okay, at one time, we used to look at, before we make our forecast for the year, next year, we'd look at whether the monsoon would be normal or not. Okay, because a lot of rural income depended on monsoon, and there was a lot of rural consumption. So that would dictate the forecast. So there are a lot of drivers. So income, population growth are some of the drivers there. Level of income is another driver. So if your food, you're in one bracket, okay, if you're and even if you're the type of food you are is different. Initially, people will consume cereal. Later, they'll move to proteins, meat, eggs, and things like that. And later, they'll go to even more esoteric sort of food. The next level is discretionary expenditure. If you're in that, then you look at what level of income they are. So that's FMCG. If you're looking at software, okay, it's the level of digitization. It's a level of, how good is broadband. Okay, what are the drivers of that business? I think you have to look at those things in addition to whatever general points I spoke. Each business has its own drivers, and I think you'll have to look at it.
Yeah, that makes sense. By business drivers, what you mean is, what are the different things which kind of, affect the dynamics of that particular business?
Correct.
I think we have some people raising hands. Maybe we will take some questions from them.
Please.
Before that, I just wanted to say thanks to Balaji. When you were talking about that article, immediately he put the link in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Balaji. Thank you so much. I should have brought that link with me.
Yeah,
it's a very interesting article. I think all founders should read it. Okay. It's very interesting.
So, Mr. Shyam, you raised your hand. If you can unmute yourself and come on screen and ask your question, please. He's unmuted. We can't hear the sound.
No, he's not unmuted. Shyam, you're still muted, Shyam. Please unmute.
He's unmuted.
No, he's muted.
No, he's unmuted only.
He's unmuted, but voice is not coming through. Shall we do one thing, Shyam, as you figure it out? Let's go to Jawahar. He also raised his hand. So maybe Jawahar, if you could unmute yourself and come on, ask your question, please.
Yeah. Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hey, call me Nandu. Please don't call me sir. I'll feel more comfortable.
Okay, Nandu. Nandu, this is Jawahar from Coimbatore.
Yes.
Sir, I could get a lot of good inputs from you today. Thank you so much for your
my pleasure. I'm looking forward to some inputs from you, sir. Okay, Jawahar.
Yeah. So I have two questions, Nandu. One is, towards the end of the session, you talked about Infosys succession plan of ownership and not management, right?
Correct.
So in that kind of plan, do you think if we do that, then the owners will not have any control over how the company is being managed, right? So they won't have any say on how things should be done, and they are just going to take away only the profit, if that is, and there is a big chance of the company going out of control when the owners don't have any control over the management. So how do you see that?
Oh, very nice question. Very nice question. Uh, you know, I don't know how the next generation will run Infosys because the current generation is still active. Okay. Though they've all retired and moved away, but they have a say in many of the things. Now, they have a stake in the company.
Okay.
Okay. They can, very important is recruitment and having the right people in. Another thing which is important is trust. If you think the managers you hired, the people you handed over the company, to run it are not capable, okay, or you don't trust them, then there's a problem. In fact, there was a problem with the earlier Infosys CEO, and they moved in quickly and changed it. I think with ownership, you still have control over those things. Okay, it is the day-to-day running which you have left to those people. It is setting the strategic direction, aligning it with that you have left it to the experts. Because while the owners, okay, while Mr. Narayan Murthy and the others may know the industry very well, may know the direction it is taking, I'm not certain the children will know it. Okay, let me give you another example. If you want your next level, your next generation to take over and run your company, one of the methods which has worked and which has worked successfully in many places is if you put the person as a trainee in your company and make them come up over a period of a few years before you give them the responsibility of top management. One.
That's a good plan. Yeah.
Another model is you give the person a stint outside, and after a few years, bring them back into the company. I think Wipro did this with Rishad Premji. Okay, he worked outside and then came. So there's no single right way. You'll have to figure it out for yourself. But beyond a point, separating management and ownership, okay, has worked for many companies.
Okay. Sir. Okay.
Have I answered your question to some extent?
Yeah, to a great extent. Yes.
Okay,
I mean, you want to say that the owners don't interfere in the day-to-day affairs of the company, but they do give a in a long-term vision and a guidance to what the company should achieve.
Most certainly.
That's the point you wanted to convey, right?
Yeah,
so,
and they may take a say in who they hire as the top manager, as the managing director, as the CEO, or whatever. That say can still be retained.
Okay. Thank you, Nanda. And the one more question that I had was, you spoke about, the initially when you hire people, they are all very passionate. The first batch of people that you hire as a startup, right?
Not hire. The people who join together and start. Okay.
Join together. And after some time, when you hire the next set of people and then the third set of people, fourth set of people, I very much have seen what you're saying. People lack the passion. And they don't contribute as much as the old employees do, right? So why do you think this concept of people not being passionate, the new employees especially, as passionate as the old ones?
Okay.
And
I'll actually ask Pandiyan to handle this after I say what I have to, because Pandiyan is our HR person, and I think he'll have a lot more to tell you. And maybe in the third session, you'll learn a lot more about this. Okay. But one of the things I have thought of here is that when a person joins a small company, okay, they come with a different mindset of being part of the growth, driving growth, participating in the growth. Okay, they come with a different mindset. But when a person joins a bigger company, then they come there, one, to work, to earn a salary, but also to show some pride. Hey, I work with so and so. Okay, so the reasons for participation are very different. Okay, it is two different type of people that you have attracted. Okay, there's no right and wrong in this. Maybe this is the sort of people you want. Okay, but what you have to guard for is that your service delivery is not effective. Because I have seen airlines when they were small, how well they looked after passengers. But as they grew big, okay, the same passenger management staff, okay, were very different, were of a very different quality. So it becomes very important to maintain the quality. And I think that is where this article will help you, which Balaji has forwarded. Okay, The Soul of a Startup. It's a very interesting article, and I think you should read.
Okay.
Okay, Pandiyan, would you like to take this question further?
I will mention only a few things now. Maybe in the third session, we will cover a little more.
Yeah.
It is common experience. Sometimes the kind of drive and everything we have seems to drop generation to generation in things that we like. See, when we were small, when we went to school, we didn't have, so many clothes. We didn't have this, we didn't have that, we studied. But look at the children today. They have all these facilities and everything, and they are going somewhere else. Now, there are two ways to look at it. One is the younger generation without motivation or passion, interest in everything or in this particular thing? Or is it something that we can do to bring the level of passion? Because ultimately, you and I, our level of passion comes with our experience, what we have faced, what we have experienced. When I start a company, the high that I get, because there is challenge, there is risk, but if you achieve it, there is glory. I carry all these emotions, so it gives me a lot of strength. But somebody who comes today, if I tell my son certain things about he says, yeah, that is your time, my time is different. And he is right. So I need to understand him if I have to get through to him. Other thing I can do is create an interest in new employees, what it was when this company was 40 years ago. If people understand the history and the culture of the company and what experiences the others went through, maybe they will find, oh, this company is doing all this. It is doing this kind of a service. It's, this part of the society. If you are able to create that interest and meaning in them, they will also have passion. But if you just expect them to have passion because they've gotten a job in the company, I think maybe, it is a hit or miss affair, right? We will, I note your question. We will talk a little more when we cover the people, right? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now, Shyam has been waiting for quite some time. Maybe we will take a question from Shyam. I think he will come in next.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, Shyam.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Actually, my business in the B2B space, we serve to the schools. We implement the innovative study material in the schools and upskill the teachers for solving the poor academic performance problem. But the main hurdle is like the teachers are not ready to upgrade themselves. Their psychology is very different, and if the teachers is not allowing the upgrading themselves, problem is like at some school level they are a decision maker. They take some few stake in taking a decision to whether that solution should apply in that particular school or not. So I want to know how in IT industry also the same problem happens when we sell the enterprises solutions. I just want to know how I can solve this, how I can convince, and what strategy should I implement here?
the first thing I'll say is if teachers are objecting or saying that they are not interested, I find it very difficult that people don't want to upgrade themselves. I find it very difficult to believe, because if people have taken a job, they have not taken a job just for sustenance. It's not just for a salary. I think people take a job because they want an identity. They want to contribute. I think they also want to help others. Okay, and these are innate human needs. Okay, irrespective of whatever, however many people behave. Now, if there's something which will make, the first thing is what you're selling, will it make their job easier? Okay, if you think so, then I think you need to probe a lot more. Okay. Two, what you're selling, is it solving a real problem for them? Or is it complicating their lives further? Okay, if it is not solving a problem for them, then they will have no use for it and they'll resist. Okay, so somewhere I think you must spend time with teachers separately in a different environment and understand what their objections are. Okay, and see if they are reasonable and whether you can handle them. Any solution is possible only after. Okay. Now, if required, maybe you can only be an observer when the discussion happens with teachers. You can hire a moderator, or you can hire a coordinator to ask the questions and understand that deeply. A good psychologist or a good group discussion facilitator will do the job for you. You can sit there and observe and understand what the issues are. Because without understanding the issues, there are no solutions. I hope I've been able to give you some direction, Shyam. Hello, I can't hear you, Shyam, again.
He is muted.
Okay.
Nanda, as he comes on, I think they say, a good salesperson, not of us think good salesperson is someone who can speak very well, great talker, great communicator. But experts always tell us, you have said this also, good salespeople are those who listen very well.
Who listen more than they talk.
Yeah.
And when they talk, they talk consumer benefit, they talk customer benefit.
So especially if you are not getting through, so I suppose we need to understand why we are not getting through and understand the blocks. Yeah. Because many times we would like people to do what we want, and sometimes it doesn't happen because obviously there is something coming in the way. And what it is, if we make an effort, there will be more efforts. But a lot of times it doesn't happen.
Actually, most of the teachers in a private school, they don't get a good amount of salary. Means 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 per month salary they are taking. So that's, they don't want to take an extra effort to upskill themselves. And so, by the way, means ultimately they will have to do, because if the poor academic performance problem persists, the admission of that school will drop. And so ultimately the management will make them forced to upskill themselves. But when we try to convince them that scenario, at that time at least we face the problem.
You're right, Shyam. We all know that teachers in our country are not paid very well. Whether it is a government school or private school, most of them are very poorly paid. Definitely there is lack of motivation. But I will give you one short story, a personal experience of mine. I work with one of the NGO which works with mentally challenged children. They run many schools. And after I left the corporates, I started working with the NGO. I learned a lot about organization and people. In that NGO, I was speaking to a teacher. And the teacher was so overcome with emotion. He was so joyful, telling me, first time one of his students passed 10th standard. Okay, he has passed 10th standard. The person was a child with mental challenge, and the the teacher who was telling me gets about 6,000 rupees per month. He has been doing it for the last 12 years. That's his job. But he felt such a sense of accomplishment because he believes in the organization he worked for, and he found meaning in the work that he did. And it was a great achievement for him when the student passed 10th standard. Now, it is not easy to replicate this all over, but some of the principles we can understand. So as organizations, do we kind of give meaning to people in their work? Obviously, if we try to do it, I am sure people would come forward, because which teacher 5,000, 6,000 salary is not going to motivate anybody. We have to find other means, right? So think about it. Maybe we will talk about it later. We are holding many other people. We will talk about it in the third session. I will remember this. Thank you very much for raising this issue. Rajendran raised one question. Can he come on, or is he not around? So in case Rajendran, you are there, you can come on. By the time, Nandu, I wanted to ask you another question as we wait for Raj or somebody else to raise a question.
Yep.
You talked about as we grow, we spend money, costs go haywire. Obviously, profitability, productivity will drop. So we have to be extremely careful. Then you also talked about investment, right, for future. Obviously, that also means spending money. And I know there is a difference between spending money, which is cost, and spending money as in, how do I understand? Am I investing or I'm wasting money? Because many times, oh, I put money in this, maybe it will give me some returns tomorrow. I may look at it as an expense. I don't want to do it. I don't want to spend all this. Tell me, do I get some returns now? I may think like that. So what is your take on this?
No. See, I think every business person knows what they're spending for now and what they're spending for in the future. Now, and that's a priority they have to do. They may object to the organization spending money for the future, saying, hey, I'm not getting any returns now. That is merely a reflection of their priority, that my current needs are more important. I would urge people to optimize between current and future. Okay, maybe when you're smaller, there's more exigency in the current. Okay. But as you move from very small to mid, you may have to make significant investments. And at that time, if you say no, when I spend money, I want returns now, that may not be a good thing. This is how I would look at it. Okay, it's not that business people don't know what is expenditure and what is investment. Oh, they very well know. If they say no, I'm not doing this, it's not going to give me any return now, I think it's only a reflection of their priority. This is how I have experienced.
You're saying basically we have to have that balance of looking at short term as well as long term. Long term will not immediately hit you.
Yeah.
But if you are not careful, later on it might become a problem.
Yeah.
So you need to have that foresight.
As they say, I am today what I am because of what I did yesterday and day before and day before. Okay. And I will be something day after tomorrow based on what I do today. And I don't think we should forget that.
But what's your take on another this thing? I think indirectly you touched upon it also. As we grow, there are many companies which make fantastic products, very good service. It could be a chef who's running a restaurant. Food is great, everything. Similarly, it could be any other thing. As you grow, maintaining that quality and what the customer really looks for becomes very difficult. So how do I balance? If I grow, then maybe I will lose some of that. Is always a fear that I carry. How do I balance this? quality and growth?
You have to have systems in place. You know, for example, McDonald's prides itself.
Sorry, which who?
McDonald's
Hmm.
prides itself. I mean, they are present all over the world,
Hmm.
and they pride themselves in their quality remaining consistent across the world. Okay. In fact, it's not the owners; it's a franchise-based expansion that they have done. I think there's a quality control aspect. I think there's a supply control aspect. You know, they approve suppliers for each region. Okay, be it the potatoes or be it the ready to fry wafers, or be it the patty, or be it the buns, or whatever. It's the supply is all standardized. The process is standardized. Okay. Over and above that, they have audits. So service delivery is that. Then they can also set up hearing stations. Today there's so much social media. Okay, if there is dissatisfaction or if there is satisfaction, okay, it's all shared over there, especially among the younger people. Okay, who say, hey, this place, McDonald's sucks. You know, they can say that. Okay, if they don't like the experience. So you have hearing stations, you have people waiting to hear it out. You give access to consumers to directly come to you and respond. Don't make a bot response or any such thing, but respond physically to them. Okay, these are ways of tracking. So not only do you put systems in place, you also put feedback loops in place to ensure that you control the service delivery.
We hear a lot of stories about CEOs going as mystery shoppers.
Yeah.
You know, like kings in the olden days used to, you know, disguise themselves and walk through the streets to find out really what's happening. Yeah.
But I believe there's nothing like going out and being there. You know, there are many people who go to their own retail outlets and experience it. They go in disguise, they go as consumers, you know, experience it themselves and make notes and come back and tell. They don't fire anyone there.
Yeah.
They come back, they make notes and say, listen, these issues I've noticed, please address them.
Otherwise, people will become paranoid.
Yeah.
There is one question from Madhura. She had mentioned regarding snacks and foods. Who drives the future regulations? What would be its implications in India? Madhura, would you like to add something to it? Would you come on audio? Expand on that. Would you like to expand on that question? Is she here?
That is a food standard.
Oh, she's okay. She's traveling, so she may not be able to speak. But her question is about, you know, regulations in snacks and foods.
That is a controlling body, okay, which will set out the regulation for it. But don't wait for the body. Okay, I think it is important to prepare for that. Okay, so if you are a high salt snack, okay, how can you still deliver the same fun? How can you still deliver the same sensory experience? Okay, by lowering the salt. You know, should you replace sodium with potassium, or are there other substitutes? Okay, how do you still retain taste and other elements? I think work should continue on that because the strategic direction has been set. Okay, that there will be controls on salt, there will be controls on fat, there will be controls on sugar. With this in place, I think you should start looking at your products. What can you do, but still provide the fun element? Snacks. Snacks are largely fun with some hunger satisfaction.
I'm not sure whether the question was driven from the fact that, you know, unlike many other, food has been around for long, but organized food industry, I don't know how mature that industry is compared to many others. because when it comes to regulations, obviously government has a role, and so also the industry bodies, how organized they are, because they also influence, because latest trends and technology and everything, government needs to take input from them. Whereas food sector, you have a lot of small players all over, be they restaurants or very small companies and so on. So I don't know whether the question was driven from that. Actual specific question was, I mean, who drives the future regulations? What would be the implications in India?
You have
Because-
the Food Standards Council of India, FSCI or whatever,
Yeah.
that's there. They are going to be the deciding body.
And obviously, it'll whatever international trends also will definitely, being countries are all connected now, will affect
Yeah.
India as well. Okay, so who else? Maybe as we wait for the next, we have 12 more minutes. As we wait for one basic question, I want to ask you, Nandu, with your background. Everyone talks about branding, and so on. Maybe I'll reserve the question. Shyam is again raising his hand.
Okay,
Maybe
okay.
we will give the opportunity. Shyam, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Actually, the one more problem which I face after getting product market fit, when I build a team, first I take a raw talent, basic talent, not proven talent, and I try to train them and I try to get a result from that. But I failed miserably in that. So after getting a product market fit, after initial team, what should be the strategy to take and recruit the new people? And here, should I take for those who are proven, those previously work, and those who are were colleagues of mine? So, what should be the strategy to recruit the new person, new team, build a new team?
It's more a people question. Pandiyan, would you like to handle it?
Sorry, I was this thing.
No,
I didn't hear the
he's saying that he's got a product market fit and things like that, but he recruited new people, raw talent, and he put them to work after training them, and he didn't get adequate results. So, what should his strategy as far as people are concerned be?
Shyam, which line of business you're in? May I ask?
He's that teacher.
It's a B2B business. Yeah, we sell to the schools.
Teaching aids.
See, whenever you want to talk about recruitment, getting people, obviously there are many things you will keep in mind as a manager. One, of course, how much is the affordability? All that will come in, because how much people cost in the market you want to get in. First, of course, you will look at the finance of it. That is definitely there. But other than that, depending on the level in which we take people, our considerations vary. If I'm recruiting a CEO, I may look at something. If I'm recruiting, people at the lower level, it will be something. But by and large, the general rule that people follow is, lower you go, more you will take for aptitude. You won't really go by what they know already, but how much they have the aptitude to learn, the intelligence, smartness, and the eagerness. So you select for that, even if the candidate might not be from, may not have very relevant experience or whatever, you will go more for that because they will be trainable. But as you go higher, you will look for positive attitude and everything, but you will also look at experience and so on. So whenever you take anybody fresh, in fact, you don't go so much by the reputation or the CV, you actually see what the capability is. Have they shown such eagerness to learn in other things, maybe during school, during college, what the hobbies are, what they do in the spare time. Many such things. These days, anybody who gives a name, immediately go into social media, you can find a lot about them. So do a little that. And I would say at the junior levels, we should always look at people who have the capacity to learn and grow, should be the most important criterion for selection. If person doesn't know how to speak English, no problem, they will learn. Person doesn't know how to do the basic things, no, they will learn if they have this. But usually, many times I find small, big companies, recruiters, they give the job specifications so detailed. Person should be of this age, from this industry, this company, and so on. But they don't do enough probing into the person's capacity to learn, and the openness to learn. These two, I would say, is very important. How do you check for that? Yes, there are many, these days, a lot of, service firms specialize in, oh, these are what you're looking for. We might be able to do it for you. So I would say that. I don't know. Does it make sense?
Yes,
Yeah,
true.
yeah, right. So Nandu, so quickly going back to, we hear so much about brands. I know a lot of people here, I'm sure they understand what brand is, but also, sometimes if you're not careful, we associate brand with the logo, the picture, the TV advertisement, and many such things. But in common, simple terms, what exactly is a brand for a company, and why is it important for a leader to pay attention to brand and brand management and branding?
So, sir, Pandiyan, you made the question sound so simple, but it's
You
really
can write
very,
a PhD thesis or
it's really a very
popular
complicated
bestseller.
question. Okay, let me tell you. Okay, let me try and answer it shortly. Okay.
Yeah.
In a concise manner. When there are products, okay, there's rice or there's milk or there is soap or whatever. Okay, products or even services fulfill a functional need. Okay, now why is a brand different? A brand also fulfills an emotional need. Okay, so there is a functional need which is fulfilled. Okay, so it also signals a certain quality, a certain consistency, a certain thing, but there is an emotional need it fulfills also. So it's a functional quality aspect and the emotional need, which is the composite of a brand. Now, a very old technique used to be that companies are valued way beyond their physical assets. And therefore, one of the important contributions to the non-physical aspect part of it, goodwill and things like that, is the brand value. Okay. So brands create additional value. If you have a brand, you're able to charge more than what a product would have been able to charge. So brands add value. Why is branding and why is a brand important? A logo, color, slogan, these are all manifestations or indications or identities of a brand. But a brand has far more than that. Okay. Brand has a certain personality. It's like a human being. Okay, it's like a friend. A brand lives in a certain world. Okay, so there's a certain world, and the brand, therefore, the consumer identifies with that sort of a lifestyle, that sort of an emotion. Okay. As they say, a car, since you're from the automobile industry, may take you from point A to point B. But a Volkswagen does it reliably. A Mercedes-Benz does it announcing that, hey, the person traveling in this is an important guy. Okay. And maybe a Chevrolet indicates that, hey, this is great fun. Okay, a guy who travels in that is doing it for fun. Okay, an Audi or a BMW indicates, hey, this guy is affluent, but he likes doing things himself. Okay, so there are different personalities, and you don't chip away the personalities by doing the wrong things. So brands have to be managed well. I try to be as concise as I can.
So there is something about what you're doing. Consumer gets a little, it emotionally kind of consumer carries the picture of it because you are emotionally also touching the consumer in a particular way.
Yes.
So either consumer thinks, yeah, I see this immediately, I know I can trust this.
Yes.
Or I know it's expensive, but value for money.
It identifies with me. For example, Coke. Okay, Coke was growing old at one time. And that's when Pepsi came out with choice of the new generation. So kids said, hey, I don't want to drink what my dad drank. Okay, I don't want to drink what my mom drank. I want to drink my own. Okay, and that's how Pepsi. So, I mean, just to give you a small example.
I think we are close to the end time. So maybe we will, wrap up. There is one question which we haven't addressed, which was Raj Rajendran. I think he has left, but I will keep track of this question because he's talked about culture, which anyway we will be talking in the third. I will take it up in that session.
Okay.
And of course, we will be meeting next month where we would be covering operational issues, finance, fund-related issues, cost, inventory, supply chain, logistics, these kind of things as the companies grow, the complexities and the problems, pains, and possible ways we could look at that. And you will meet two other gentlemen you are seeing on screen, Nanda Kumar and Subir Majumdar. And otherwise, it's from my side, it's been a good interaction. So maybe next time it will be even more, the flow would be, I was getting, understanding the audience. So we will have a little more inputs next time. So thanks everyone. Over to you, Nandu. You have any final words to say?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. I think the questions were provoked some thought in me too. And I thank you for the questions and the participation. And thank you, TiE. Thank you for this opportunity.